Well, Richard?
You're halfway to bed. I'll wait for morning.
Come in.
Welcome to MsMojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the most notable romantic couples in history who defied societal and familial objections to be together. We'll be skipping mythical duos like Guinevere and Lancelot or Paris and Helen.
You shouldn't be here.
That's what you said last night.
Number 20, Alexander I of Greece and Aspasia Manos. In 1917, Alexander I unexpectedly became king of Greece after his father, Constantine I, was exiled during World War I. Alexander had fallen in love with his childhood friend, Aspasia Manos, and was determined to marry her even though she was a commoner.
Why, Harry, I won't have it! You're a prince, and you're going to marry a princess!
Initially, his father persuaded him to wait until after the war, but by 1919, Alexander defied him and married Manos in a secret ceremony. This wedding caused a huge uproar, as it was done without the archbishop's consent, which went against the Greek constitution. The couple was forced to flee temporarily to Paris, and Manos was never officially recognized as queen. Their marriage was, however, short-lived, as Alexander tragically died in 1920 from an infection caused by a monkey bite.
Animals will do that. They lack soul.
Number 19, Oscar Wilde and Lord Alfred Douglas. The love affair between Irish playwright Oscar Wilde and Lord Alfred Douglas began in 1891, while Wilde was married to his wife, Constance Lloyd. This relationship was illegal, as homosexuality was criminalised in Victorian England under the Gross Indecency Law. Not only was their love frowned upon by society, it was also antagonised by Douglas's father, John, the Marquis of Queensberry.
You will cease to see Wilde, or I'll cut you off without a penny.
As though I wanted your money. What little you have left from your tarts.
How dare you speak to your father like that?
Determined to end the affair, John publicly accused Wilde of being gay, which led to a libel suit. However, the trial unearthed Wilde's intimate letters to Douglas, resulting in him being arrested and convicted of gross indecency. After serving 2 years in prison, Wilde spent his final years in exile, briefly living with Douglas before they parted ways forever.
Life cheats us with shadows. We ask it for pleasure, it gives it to us, with bitterness and disappointment in its train. And we find ourselves looking with dull heart of stone at the tress of gold-flecked hair that we had once so wildly worshipped.
Number 18, Camila O'Gorman and Father Ladislao Gutierrez. Camila O'Gorman was only 23 years old when she was executed by Argentine dictator Juan Manuel de Rosas simply for falling in love. O'Gorman was a close friend of Rosas's daughter, Manuelita, but after meeting Catholic priest Father Ladislao Gutierrez, they eloped, knowing their relationship was forbidden. The couple settled in a small town where they lived as a married couple under assumed names.
They decided to flee to the northeast of Argentina and seek asylum as a married couple. The couple set up a school in the town and became teachers.
However, their disappearance became a public matter after O'Gorman's father claimed the priest had kidnapped her, and Rosas was accused by his opponents of corrupting Argentine women. This pressured him to quickly find the couple and set an example. In 1848, despite pleas from his daughter, Rosas ordered their execution, even though O'Gorman was reportedly 8 months pregnant.
The couple are regarded as national martyrs in Argentina. Two lovers who defied a tyrannical ruler in the name of love will remain an inspiration for all oppressed lovebirds around the globe.
Number 17, Marla Zimmerbaum and Edward Galinsky. This tragic love story was set against the harrowing backdrop of the Holocaust. Marla Zimmerbaum and Edward Galinsky were both prisoners who met in the Auschwitz concentration camp. Despite the unimaginable horrors around them, they fell in love and dreamed of a future together.
In early 1944, Edek started seriously thinking about escaping from Auschwitz. Initially, Edek was supposed to escape from the camp with Vyacheslav Killer, with whom he started planning. They decided that the best way was to leave the camp disguised as SS men.
After devising a plan to escape, they managed to do so in June 1944, with Galinsky dressed as an SS guard and Zimmerbaum posing as a prisoner being taken to work. However, they were caught after just 2 weeks and returned to Auschwitz, where they were sentenced to death. As they faced the gallows, Zimmerbaum put up a final act of defiance by attempting to take her own life before the Nazi executioners could carry out their orders.
Marla slapped the guard's face with her bloody hand and shouted at the guard, "You all shall dearly pay for your deeds." Then she turned to the assembled prisoners, trying to encourage them. "I was outside. The end of the war is nearing. Be strong and firm.
Number 16, Mary and Percy Shelley. Born Mary Wollstonecraft Godwin to a philosopher, William Godwin, and feminist writer, Mary Wollstonecraft. Mary Shelley is best known as the author of the classic Gothic novel Frankenstein. In her teenage years, she met Percy Shelley, a radical poet who was her father's protege. Although Percy was married, the two began seeing each other and subsequently fell in love.
Their empty covenant has no power over us.
I fear not of God, or his henchmen on earth.
When he learned of this relationship, William Godwin was infuriated and forbade Percy from seeing Mary. This only led to them eloping to France. After Percy's wife took her own life, he officially married Mary, hoping it would change her father's opinion of their relationship.
My choice has made me who I am, and I regret nothing.
Unfortunately, their marriage was marred by loss, as their first 3 children died young and only one survived into adulthood. Number 15, Elizabeth Barrett and Robert Browning. Elizabeth Barrett began writing poetry at a young age, and by the 1840s, she was a prominent figure in the Victorian literary scene, with a large body of work. It was her poetry that caught the attention of her eventual husband, Robert Browning, who wrote to her praising her 1844 collection poems. This kicked off a correspondence between the two that eventually blossomed into a romantic relationship.
Even before I passed that door, I loved you. And I've gone on loving you. And I shall love you to the end and beyond. You know that.
However, Barrett was under the watchful eye of her father, who forbade any of his children from getting married. As a result, she wed Browning in secret and eloped to Italy, which led to her disinheritance. Barrett lived the rest of her life there and died in 1861 after a prolonged illness.
Are you afraid, Bob?
Afraid? Oh, you know I'd rather die with you beside me than live 100 lives without you.
Number 14, Francesca da Rimini and Paolo Malatesta. The daughter of Guido I da Polenta of Ravenna, Italy, Francesca da Rimini was betrothed to Giovanni Malatesta, the son of Malatesta da Verrucchio, Lord of Rimini. The marriage was purely political, intended to broker peace between the two warring families. However, Giovanni didn't attend the wedding, and was instead represented by his younger, more handsome brother, Paolo.
Can a good thing come from a bad thing? Paolo the groom.
Is this a good thing?
Yes, I think.
And what is the bad?
Francesca was instantly captivated by Paolo, and they soon began a 10-year affair, despite both being married to other people. This affair ended tragically when Giovanni caught them in bed together, and in a fit of rage, murdered them both. Their relationship and tragic death became immortalized in Dante's Inferno, as a symbol of love's destructive power. Number 13, Prince Rudolf of Austria and Baroness Mary Wetzerer. As the only son of Emperor Franz Josef, Prince Rudolf was the heir apparent to the Austro-Hungarian throne from birth. His marriage to Princess Stephanie of Belgium started happily but deteriorated following the birth of their daughter. After purchasing Meierling, an imperial hunting lodge, Rudolf began an affair with a teenage baroness named Mary Wetzerer.
Good evening, Your Highness. Good evening, my love. Oh, take me away, please take me away.
Their relationship was scandalous due to their age difference, Rudolf's marriage, and the fact that Wetzerer came from a lower noble family. When Wetzerer's family found out about the affair, they were reportedly outraged and disapproved of it. Perhaps seeing no future together, Rudolf and Wetzerer made a pact to end their lives at the hunting lodge, in what is now known as the Meierling incident.
Rudolf convinced the poor girl that the world was out to get them and they needed to die for their love. Mary, who was herself a melancholy romantic, she agreed.
Number 12, Archduke Franz Ferdinand and Countess Sophie Chotek. After the deaths of Prince Rudolf and his father, Karl Ludwig, Archduke Franz Ferdinand became the presumptive heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne. As such, he was expected to marry a woman from a European dynasty. However, he fell in love with Countess Sophie Chotek, a lady-in-waiting whose family did not meet that standard.
She was merely the fourth daughter of a minor noble Czech family. Her family's dire financial conditions had forced her to become a lowly ranked servant for the Archduchess Isabella. In the eyes of the royalty, she was ranked barely above a commoner.
Ferdinand was determined to marry Hotek, but he faced resistance from her mistress, Archduchess Isabella, and Emperor Franz Josef. The emperor initially refused to permit the marriage, but ultimately relented amid pressure from Ferdinand's stepmother. They were allowed to marry in 1900 under the condition it would be a morganatic marriage, meaning their children couldn't inherit the throne. Their love endured despite this limitation until their assassination in 1914, which sparked World War I.
Franz Ferdinand uttered his last words while clutching his lifeless wife.
Sophie dear, don't die. Stay alive for the children.
Number 11, Inês de Castro and Pedro I of Portugal. Pedro I of Portugal first wed Constanza of Castile in 1340, a union arranged by his father, King Alfonso IV. However, it was Constanza's lady-in-waiting, Inês de Castro, who truly caught his eye.
By 1342 or 1343, it was an open secret at the Portuguese court that the two were engaged in an extramarital affair, although Peter and Constanza did have children in the early 1340s.
King Afonso strongly opposed their affair as he feared Inês's influence over his son and viewed her as a threat to the kingdom's stability. After Constanza died in childbirth, Alfonso urged Pedro to marry another woman, but he refused. Frustrated by his inability to separate them, Afonso ordered Inês's assassination, which devastated Pedro.
He swore revenge and even revolted against his father for having killed her, thus creating a civil war in Portugal.
When he ultimately became king, Pedro declared Inês queen posthumously, then hunted down her killers and executed them. Legend has it he even exhumed her remains, placed them on the throne, and forced the nobles to pay her homage. Number 10, Edward VIII and Wallis Simpson. What could cause a man to give up his title as King of England? A great love, of course.
That I have found it impossible to carry the heavy burden of responsibility and to discharge my duties as king as I would wish to do, without the help and support of the woman I love.
In the early 1930s, before he was crowned, Edward VIII met American socialite and divorcee Wallis Simpson, with whom he would eventually begin a relationship. He wished to marry her, but because she had been divorced, it was unprecedented and forbidden.
David, let's stop all this talk about marriage. It frightens me and I can't see any good coming of it.
Why?
Your family will never stand for it. The Prime Minister won't stand for it.
Making a monumental sacrifice in the name of love, he abdicated the throne, leaving the position to his brother, George VI. Sadly, not every tale of forbidden royal love gets a happy ending. Queen Elizabeth II's sister Margaret was ultimately prevented from marrying the divorced man she loved, Peter Townsend.
I'm so sorry. You will love others.
Number 9, Alexander I of Serbia and Draga Martin. Be warned, this love story ends in tragedy. Alexander Obrenović became king of Serbia when he was only 16 years old. In 1900, 7 years later, Alexander shocked the court when he announced his intention to marry Draga Martin, a widow 12 years older than himself who had previously been a lady-in-waiting for his mother.
The fact is, I prefer older women. My tastes have swung from young, empty-headed meringues to seasoned entrees well basted by life.
Because of her lower birth status and the fact that she was deemed too old to produce an heir, they received strong opposition from both the government and wider public. After going ahead with their nuptials anyway, the king and queen were killed by conspirators in 1903. Number 8, Héloïse and Peter Abelard. 12th century French philosopher Peter Abelard is known for his theology, but with the passing of time, his love affair with the young maiden Héloïse d'Argenteuil has become arguably his most famous legacy.
Tell me what you like to read.
Philosophy, science, mathematics, astronomy.
Theology.
Some.
Romances.
7 letters still exist where he passed between two lovers, and this is the basis of what historians know of their courtship. After studying under his tutelage, Héloïse became pregnant. Though married in secret, their nuptials became public knowledge, and so Héloïse was sent to become a nun. Her uncle, Fulbert, then proceeded to have Abelard castrated. Disgraced, the philosopher became a monk. Though they never would meet again, their correspondence has gone on to inspire many lovers.
I've read your poems too.
Mirrors held to truth.
Nope. Memorable prose.
Number 7, Richard I of England and Philip II of France. Alright, there isn't a ton of evidence that Richard the Lionheart was gay, but we do know that he had a curiously close relationship with Philip II of France.
You find that charming? No. Then why the charming smile? I thought, I can't think why, of when you were in Paris last.
A contemporary account stated that the two kings ate from the same dish and even shared a bed, but at the time, two men sleeping side by side didn't necessarily have homosexual overtones. Their relationship could have been a fraternal bond founded in politics, or a case of courtly love. But considering the fact that they wound up feuding in their later years, a bona fide romantic relationship doesn't seem so far-fetched. Either way, Richard I has since been claimed as a gay icon.
You haven't said you loved me. When the time comes.
Number 6, Dante Alighieri and Beatrice Portinari.
E si incontrarono tra una di queste case ad una festa. Lui la vide questa bambina con un vestito rosso, fuoco, e lui se ne innamorò perdutamente.
Though there isn't much concrete evidence linking these two lovers, Beatrice Portinari lived near Dante in Florence and is widely accepted by scholars as the same Beatrice referenced in his writings. Not only did Beatrice serve as Dante's muse for his work, La Vita Nuova, but also as the heavenly guide in his Divine Comedy.
Portrayed as a powerful heavenly figure, she leads Dante through Paradiso's concentric spheres of heaven until he is finally face to face with God.
Was Dante's love an unrequited one, or was it societal pressures and proper decorum that kept these lovers apart? We'll never know for sure. What we do know, however, is that Beatrice was married to another man and Dante to another woman, and that she died young at the age of 24. Number 5, Richard and Mildred Loving. You may be familiar with this racially charged tale of forbidden love, which was adapted into an Academy Award-nominated film in 2016. But in case you missed it, allow us to fill you in. Richard and Mildred Loving were happily married in 1958 in Washington, D.C., and then went back home to Virginia. The only problem? Mildred was black and Richard was white, and while their community was notably integrated, interracial marriage remained illegal.
People had been mixing all the time, so I didn't know any different. I didn't know there was a law against it.
Soon after their wedding, they were arrested for violating sections of the Virginia Code. Their case ended up in the Supreme Court, and they made history when they caused the law prohibiting interracial marriage to be abolished. Talk about a love that can conquer all boundaries and obstacles.
Do you think that this brings you closer together?
Yes, I do, I think.
Number 4, Nicholas II of Russia and Alexandra Feodorovna. For Nicholas II, it was reportedly love at first sight when he met his future wife Alexandra, formerly known as Alex of Hesse and by Rhine, the favourite granddaughter of Queen Victoria and presumed future Queen of England.
Walked around the entire day in a haze, not fully conscious, actually, of what happened to me.
The two fell for each other at the marriage of Alex's sister to Nicholas's uncle. Despite this history of intermarriage between their two families, however, Alex's German ancestry made her an unfit match in the eyes of Nicholas's father, Tsar Alexander III. Though the family eventually relented, sadly, as anyone familiar with Russian history will tell you, there's no happy ending. Nicholas, Alexandra and their children were all executed by the Bolsheviks in 1918.
Do you remember Levadia in the spring? The cherry blossom. I'm going to take you back there.
Number 3, Seretse Khama and Ruth Williams. In 1947, Seretse Khama, a prince from the Bechuanaland Protectorate, now Botswana, was studying in London when he met an Englishwoman named Ruth Williams. Despite their different backgrounds and racial tensions at the time, they fell deeply in love and got married the following year.
We knew that we were going to upset our immediate families, but then at the same time we didn't want to live apart.
Their interracial union faced strong opposition back home, both from Khama's tribal elders and neighbouring South Africa, which had just instituted apartheid. South Africa banned the couple and pressured Britain to strip away Khama's chieftainship. In response, Britain exiled Khama to London, only allowing him to return home years later, after he renounced the tribal throne. Khama eventually led Bechuanaland to independence in 1966 and became Botswana's first president, with Williams as his first lady.
Just the fact that people were trying to separate us. Even after we were married, they were still trying to separate us. Somebody described it one time as trying to split the atom.
Number 2, Napoleon and Josephine. The love story between Napoleon Bonaparte and Josephine de Beauharnais is a well-documented and tumultuous one. When the couple met, Napoleon was immediately smitten, but because Josephine was his elder by several years, already had 2 children, and had previously been the mistress of several other prominent figures, their partnership was strongly contended by his family.
I think you should take all the time you need. You will find a delicate way of explaining it to her.
Explaining it to her is not a problem. I love her.
They were married nonetheless, and their love letters to one another will go down in history as some of the most romantic ever written. Several years into their marriage and following multiple affairs, when Josephine had still not produced an heir to the throne, Napoleon divorced her for the sake of his legacy, despite still loving her.
Do you doubt it?
Not when you look at me like that. Not when we're alone, just the 2 of us. It's the other people who frighten me and spoil everything.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications.
Number 1, Mark Antony and Cleopatra. Though depictions of Cleopatra have varied greatly in the works of fiction, there is no doubt about the veracity of the love that the Ptolemaic Queen of Egypt shared with the married Roman general Mark Antony. Their affair was the cause of much strife between regions, with Octavian, who was his fellow triumvir and brother-in-law, ultimately declaring war on Antony's mistress, Cleopatra.
Octavian will burn the palace tomorrow. We must decide how to end this. And win.
There is debate amongst historians as to how exactly these 2 lovers met their end, but the most widely accepted is that they both ended their own lives shortly after one another. Before the film adaptations, their story was first immortalised and made popular in Shakespeare's famous play, Antony and Cleopatra, which adheres loosely to the real-life events.
Dear me, Queen! The strong necessity of time commands our services a while. But my full heart remains in use with you.
Which of these tales of forbidden love resonated with you the most? Let us know in the comments below.
Do you know any other couples who are in the same situation then?
Yeah, I know some. I wouldn't like calling names.
No. I just wondered if you did.
Yeah, I know. You.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from MsMojo. And be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.